Discover the Our Medtech Lives podcast, where industry experts share their career stories, key achievements, and insights into overcoming challenges in the medtech field. Hosted by Zilko Rima and Kash Ikram.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Our Medtech Lives. Today we have the pleasure to speak with Joe Licata. Joe started in medtech at a really early age, as a teenager basically, volunteering at his local hospital, where he got to see the surgeons, the nurses, and the medical device and pharma people in action. What followed was an illustrious career working at companies such as Boston, Baxter, Stereotaxis, before he set up his own company, RepPath. So without further ado, welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Joe. Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us something about yourself, your background, and why you started as a sales rep, even if Kash pointed out a little bit already.
Yeah, absolutely. So ever since I was a young man, I always wanted to be a doctor. I was fully geared for that through college, through high school. And then when I got into college, I started volunteering at St. James Hospital in Newark, New Jersey, which no longer exists anymore. It closed down about 10 years ago, but we're going back some time, almost, over 25 years ago, where I was very lucky. I started shadowing this one of the surgeons, Dr. Anthony Ferrara. He got me in to start meeting with the rest of the staff, and I was able to volunteer, which allowed me to see different surgeries throughout the hospital. And one of the things that really piqued my interest was seeing these young guys come in there telling these gray-haired doctors what to do during some of the surgeries. And I had no idea that the sales side of medicine really existed. I was always geared towards becoming a doctor. And it impressed me that you had a 25-year-old telling some 65-year-old what to do during a case. So I thought that was really, really cool. And it piqued my interest to sales. So that's what really got my interest on the sales side. When I graduated from Villanova, I was a biology major. So again, I was always just either, if you're going to be a bio major, you're either going to be a doctor or a nurse, or, pick a different major. I was sorely mistaken with that because I realized how amazing the medical sales field is. I started out right out of college with to get sales experience. I started with a company called Carico, which sold air purification and water filtration products. And I had friends that were in the medical sales industry, but started at this company because they said, if you really got to know if you like sales, and everyone wants to get into medical sales because you're dealing with patients, you're dealing with doctors, but you got to know if sales is for you. So I took the role. I did well for about a year, a little over a year and a half. And then I applied and got my first opportunity at Organon on the pharmaceutical side.
Okay.
Yes. So I was calling on pain specialists selling a drug called Avinza. I also was calling on OBGYNs selling a drug. It's actually, I don't know if you guys heard of it out in Europe, called NuvaRing, which is a vaginal birth control.
Right.
It looks like a little bracelet. But anyway, I was selling both of those products, did well, got promoted, got into the hospital team, and that led me into my future roles in the industry.
Wow, it's so similar to I studied biology and then I left. I joined a pharmaceutical company. I was at Phison's and I was at Sandoz. They really know how to teach you how to sell, right, at those companies.
Absolutely.
They do a really good job at pharmaceutical companies. And then, fell into medtech. So it's interesting, the parallel that we have there.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, so I don't know if you want to keep going throughout the rest of my whole career. Yeah, so I did well at Organon. Unfortunately, we were all of us in our division were laid off because Organon was purchased by another company. But that allowed me to venture out and look at other opportunities. And I got onto the device side with Boston Scientific selling spinal cord stimulation. And that was a very interesting role because you had a heavy patient interaction. When patients are implanted with a spinal cord stimulator, they leave with your cell phone and you're essentially married to that patient. Because if there's a problem with that stimulator, they can call you 24/7. Very exciting, challenging from different, for different reasons. But this gave me my real first opportunity on the device side, and I loved it. From there, I had a role at Baxter, which was a combination. It was a unique role because you had to get vaporizers in, which we've all seen in the anesthesia carts. So it was a combination of pharma and device working there with hospitals all around the Northeast. I took a role after that. After unfortunately, we had another layoff. I got a role at Stereotaxis where I was promoted to a regional sales manager. That role, I was selling a cardiac ablation robot. So similar to the Da Vinci robot that many of us have seen in all the hospitals, these are essentially two magnets that stow into the bed like this. Patient is in the middle. They create a magnetic field, and the doctor can move the catheter through the heart from the control room, not even in the same room as the patient, where they're able to move it, just like in a lot of those Da Vinci cases where they're not at the table, but they're still doing the procedure. So I covered half the country. My team was the eastern side of the Mississippi. And then from there, I was a national sales director for a wound care company called Cogent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got out of the corporate world. Me and my buddies, we had our own business later on that we sold a couple of years ago, and that led me to RepPath. And the goal of RepPath was taking my years of experience and wanted to help reps, to give them the reality of what it's really like out there. What are the real challenges? Because sometimes I tell them things that they don't like, but I rather have that be the conversation than all sunshine and rainbows and, basically a false promise of what's to come. But that's what we do right now. Like I said at the beginning, we do consulting where
Yeah.
we work with companies all around the country to help them build their infrastructure. We do
Mm-hmm.
recruiting where we align candidates and clients with opportunities. And then we also have the RepPath Academy, which allows individuals to break into the industry and also advance in their careers.
So I
Fantastic.
have a question. You said you had a lot of experience before you had your first sales rep job. Normally, when we talk to people, they say, I started by coincidence, but you knew exactly what to do. Was there still something which surprised you when you had your first real job?
Yes. I mean, one of the first things that surprised me when I started at Organon, because they do a fantastic job of training you and you do role plays and situational selling. And I was blown away the first few weeks in the role because I'm like, wow, nobody really wants to talk to me. Nobody really wants to see me. How come they're not smiling when I come in the room?
Yeah.
And that did catch me off guard. And I was like, wow, doctors don't care about sales reps coming in here, and it was a wake-up call to realize that just by walking in the room, you're not going to just get the attention and have relationships waiting for you. And we had great products, but you had to build and earn those relationships. So it was great to look back months down the line where I was like, wow, when I walked into Dr. Jones or Dr. Smith's office when I first came here, they had frowns on their faces. They were like, what do you want? And then over time, that's when they would smile. That's when they'd say, hey, Joe, come in the back. Hey, Joe, I have a question for you. And it was a great feeling. But at first, it was not that way. It was nobody wants to see me.
So, what were the differences between the pharma or your pharma experience and your medtech? Was there a difference? Did you feel there was a difference? Yeah.
100%. And this is something that I don't shy away from because these are things that are, you know, I've been on both sides. So I
Yeah.
feel I've earned the right to share my opinion. For me personally, both great careers. I love the device side more. And the reason why I like the device side, the challenge with pharma that I always face, you get yes to death. And that's the best way I could put it. Doctors come in, they go, oh, Joe, yeah, your product sounds great. I'm going to give it to the next 5 patients with XYZ comorbidities and have all these issues, just like you're saying. Then you go back in a week from now. How's it going? Oh, Joe, patients are doing well, or no news is good news. But yeah, I definitely prescribed it to them. And then you have to wait a period of time for the numbers to come out. And so you find out a lot of these times the doctors aren't telling the truth and they just wanted to get you out of the room. And sometimes they were. But what I liked about Device was you had a case scheduled. You left that day. The doctor said, Joe, I'm going to use you next Tuesday. You work with the schedule. You're going to be at that case. After the case, you get your purchase order. You made a sale. So I also like the hands-on approach where you're in the surgeries with the physicians working side by side. It was intense because sometimes some crazy stuff happens and you got to be, ready to
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
But for those reasons, that's why those are the big differences I saw between pharma and device.
For me, when I worked at Pharma, we were basically handed a script, right? Because compliance was so tight on what you could and could not say. And you ended up going through a fixed detail aid with the script that you'd memorized, and having done that 4 or 5 times a day for 3 months, my brain was trickling out of my ear. It was slowly dissolving.
Yes.
When I went to med device, I went to orthopedics like yourself, when I sold hips and knees and things. And I asked my boss, I said, "Where's the sales script?" And he looked at me and said, "Cash." Mike White, legend in the industry, looked at me and said, "Cash, we don't hire people in short trousers. You have the detail aid, you have the data, go figure it out." And that for me was, wow, revolution, right? Then I was actually figuring out what are the needs of this particular customer and what are the benefits of this product that match what they're looking for, right? Are they looking for increased flex? Are they looking for a certain type of hip for younger patients, a certain type of hip for older patients? Then I felt I could really sell. And that's and I found the med device so much more interesting and stimulating. Yeah, never looked back, never went back
I
to.
think the short trousers thing is a UK thing, Cash.
Yes, it is. It is. And I'm fascinated that you worked at Stereotaxis. Now, Stereotaxis, I mean, the price tag on one of those is what, $1 million?
It's over that. It's closer. I mean, when you do the build out, see that the challenge with those sales was you could have buy-in from the doctor, you could have
Yeah,
the staff, you can have buy-in from the CFO to the CEO, they could have the funding, everything could make sense, perfect world. Then the spot they want to put it in is too close to MRI equipment in the hospital. You
yeah,
can't put it in
yeah,
because our robot would affect the MRI machines. So
yes,
there's sometimes it'd be a perfect world, and then they got to do the build out, which could be a couple $1 million.
yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, so the whole project from start to finish was anywhere low end, a little over $3 million to $5 million between the
Yeah.
product and the build out.
And that's fascinating, isn't it? Like you could be selling syringes and needles for a couple of dollars a piece, but you could also be selling, you know, projects with turnkey projects that are millions of dollars in
Yes.
execution, involving large numbers of stakeholders, infrastructure people, building, maintenance, CFOs, CEOs, etc. And that's a great thing that I find in med device as well. Some
But
of
all
the
is important, right? I wouldn't say this is more important than the low
yeah,
price products.
Yeah, and sometimes those lower price products are more important. And I'm not saying that with my previous, because Stereotax was an amazing company, great machine, great
yes,
product, great team. But there sometimes the price point doesn't matter in terms of importance. It does matter in terms of the challenge to get into the hospital.
exactly. What I'm trying to say is the diversity from selling a consumable product to selling a product that maybe has AI and software included in it, something that communicates to the patient when they're away from the hospital, to a robot. And hey, the product you sell needs to go in an entirely new building that the hospital has to build, like a proton machine as well for cancer. So I think that's fascinating. And I think the other fascinating aspect of your career was you were laid off a couple of times.
Yes,
Now, unfortunately, it happens, right?
yes.
Acquisitions occur, products downturn, products get discontinued, whole sales forces maybe moved into other areas. But that was great experience for you for what you're doing now, right? Because
Chat. I
yeah,
mean, the one piece of advice that I give all of our candidates, all of our clients with the Rep Path Academy, because I don't work with everyone. If they don't want, if they're okay, if they're not, excuse me, if they're not okay with the volatility
yeah,
of this industry, then it's not for you. If candidates think they're going to come in and they're going to work one job for the next 40 years of their life, this is not the industry for that. For the most part, once you have a job, you're going to always have a job in this industry. But you got to plan on, like you were saying, Cash, where, different things happen outside of your control. And that's unfortunately one of the things that's a challenge in this industry. you got to be willing to adapt. And if you're not willing to do that and you want that one job and that security, don't choose this industry.
The iteration of products is so fast that things are replacing things all the time. That's again compared to pharma. The life cycles in pharma are much greater. Be launched, you could be selling a monitor today that's replaced by a handheld monitor tomorrow, right? By another
Right.
company.
Correct.
And that's part of the exciting aspect of how quick our industry is evolving all the time.
So
Now,
on LinkedIn, you have written about how hard it is to break into medtech. So what are the three biggest myths candidates believe about entering the industry? How can they overcome? And maybe that would be interesting for us because you have a rep pass. Can you share a real story? We always hear about people breaking into the industry, but do you have a real example of someone who didn't have the perfect background?
Absolutely. I mean, well, first off, one of the big misperceptions that a lot of candidates have, they don't realize how competitive it is, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I hear it's competitive." So I like to give real numbers. So for our recruiting side, every time we post a position, we get anywhere from 300 to 500 resumes within a couple of days. Now, sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes a little less, but overall, that's like that magic number that there's a lot of candidates in there that don't read the job description. They just click and apply. I get that because it's so easy to do today. But there's still a good number of those candidates that actually are good candidates. So my first piece of advice to people is you got to really want this. You got to realize it is that competitive. There's so many people that want these jobs because they're great jobs. And that's a big misperception that a lot of candidates don't realize. They also, and I know we talked about this in on our previous call, that they got to understand that it's not about rejection. Most candidates will tell me, Joe, I have thick skin. Nobody cares you have thick skin. You know who else has thick skin? Every other sales rep that applies for these jobs.
yeah,
That's a must. That's a prerequisite to have thick skin. Are you prepared to not have access? And and especially in the States, I'm sure is similar out in Europe. Access is very difficult. Doctors don't, hospitals aren't welcoming you in. Come on in. Anyone who wants to sell something, you could get in here. So your thick skin only gets you so far. What happens when someone doesn't even talk to you? What happens when you knock on a door and no one responds? That's what makes the high performers stand out from the average reps, because they're the ones that are thinking outside of the box or being more persistent or have a better strategy to get to the doctor. So that's
yeah,
another big misperception. And then I'm big on this when you go, because I just did this post and I got a lot of heat from it on both sides. And again, this is me just because I'm very real. When everyone's going to say, as long as you make it about the patient. So when you're in the interviews, I want to get into this because of helping patients. Well,
yeah.
if you want to do that, there's many other clinical roles out there that have nothing to do with sales that you can take. That's, to me, is not the answer. We all are here. Of course, we're here for patients. Those are all, again, prerequisites. Your product should help a patient out, but you have to bring more to the table than that. You have to think more of like a businessman when you're in these roles, or you will, again, at the end of the day, companies, they're here for the patients, but they have to make money. You have to be productive and drive results. If you lose sight of that, you're not going to be successful in this business.
Joe, what's the difference between a rhinoceros and a sales rep?
What's that?
Why, well, one has thick skin and charges a lot, and the other's a rhinoceros.
But Joe, you said you receive 300 to 500 CVs for a job. So how much time do you spend on a CV and how do you select the best candidate?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm very passionate about this, and I teach this all the time. Where one of my big pet peeves, if you really want to get me turned off by sending me your resume, is just sending me your resume. Or I get this a lot, Joe, I'm interested, and with their resume below, interested in what? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Sometimes we have 30 or 40 openings at once. Number one, just because you live in that city, you got to sell me first, because my job on the recruiting side is to make the hiring manager's job easier. So if I just get those resumes and send them to the hiring manager, go, hey, I got 50 good resumes for you. Check these out when you get a chance. They'll never work with me again. because my job is to go through those resumes and find the best candidates. So your job as a candidate is to make the recruiter's job easier. And if you want to get more responses, because a lot of candidates are saying, hey, Joe, I get ghosted all the time. No one gets back to me. Well, number one, are you even reading the requirements? If you don't meet at least 50% of the requirements, don't apply to the job.
Mm.
You're not going to hear back because they're not going to
Yeah.
take you seriously because you didn't take the opening seriously. And when
But
you
what
do,
could be, sorry to interrupt, but what could be the 50% when you don't have a background in medtech? What can they
well,
offer?
absolutely. Well, we've helped place from bartenders, busboys, waiters, teachers, nurses, lawyers. It's all about your transferable skills. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn how to highlight whatever your transferable skills are. So for instance, we did have a teacher that was like, Joe, I'm not a sales rep, but honestly, she was burnt out for their teaching career and wanted to do something more. She wanted to make more money. She wanted to have more flexibility. And so when we helped her, one of the key things that a teacher brings to the table is presentation skills. They're
Mm-hmm.
constantly presenting, and that's what we're doing in sales. So if you can show those transferable skills of presentation skills, excuse me, if you could show your presentation skills, you're gonna be a much more valuable candidate. But you got to be able to relay that, when you're speaking to the recruiters, when you're speaking in an interview to a hiring manager, when you show them that you have those transferable skills, but you also show them that you did your homework and understand whatever role you're going for, in and out, that's what attracts them. Because a lot of times candidates, they don't do enough research on what the role really means. They go on LinkedIn, they go on Google, they go on ChatGPT, they look up the company, they look up the products. Yeah, that's not going to separate you. You got to
Mhm.
really understand what the challenges are and what you bring to the table as a solution.
What are your thoughts on this easy apply on LinkedIn then? Because there you simply upload your CV. You cannot say anything unless you mark it as your top choice. Then you have a couple of letters. So would you recommend to use easy apply for an employer?
You can, with us at the RepPath Academy, we don't allow anyone to just send their resume to a job without networking.
Mm-hmm.
So the couple quick tips that I have when you're applying for a role. Okay. So if we're just talking about easy apply, obviously you're just clicking a button and sending it over. But you're looking up wherever that opening is, going on LinkedIn, seeing who the hiring manager is if they didn't give it to you, and then seeing who's connected to that hiring manager. Reach out to those individuals. So our goal for every opening, they have to have at least 3 conversations with sales reps or other personnel that work closely with that hiring manager
Mm-hmm.
before the interview. Because our goal is, I want you to get the information that you can't Google, that you can't chat GPT. That's gold. That's the info where the reps really tell you, well, let me tell you more about Bob. This is what he really likes and this is what he dislikes. You're not going to
Yeah.
get that on chat GPT. So now when you go into the interview, you can adjust your presentation. It's the same thing as when you're calling on doctors. You have to find out what their key drivers are and then sell to that. That's why, like you were saying before, Cash, when you
Mm.
got the script in Pharma
Yeah.
years ago, you can't go by a script. You got to go by what are their drivers and what are their needs, and then I'm going to sell to your need. And there could be times that I don't bring anything to the table for a customer. I'm going to move on to somebody else. If a doctor doesn't do a certain procedure, I'm not going to teach him how to do a procedure he doesn't want to do so he can use my product. I'm going to go to the doctors that find a need for me and my product.
Are there particular roles outside of medtech that are lending themselves more to these type of roles? You talk about teacher early on with the great skills that they have, and teaching and training and education is a big part of medtech. But maybe if you're selling other products, are there particular areas that come to mind that
Well, in
lead
terms
to
of
more?
for us, the most common, anywhere where you have, the bread and butter experience that really helps reps break into the industry, obviously are other sales roles where they're selling in an outside sales role in a B2B environment. So they're calling on the business owner who they can't get to right away. So they have to meet with the receptionist first, or they have to meet with someone else to get to the decision maker. So roles like ADP, Paychex, Cintas, Enterprise, UniFirst. These are all, when reps have those experience, a lot of these companies love that experience because A, they have those outside B2B experience, but they know that your sales training is top notch. So they know that you're going to know how to sell. They just got to teach you how to sell those products. But in
Exactly.
terms of other industries, teachers, we have placed a lot of teachers, obviously nurses, anyone that's a tech within the hospital space. They have that clinical experience they love.
Yeah.
We've placed a bunch of lawyers, again, presentation skills. They're used to convincing people. They're very good on the phone when they're talking to some of these hiring managers. They're convincing. And then anyone in the service industry. That's why we mentioned bartenders, waiters, that they might not have the background, the typical background, but you get in conversations with them. They bring that energy and that personality. And a lot of times, those are the reps because the hiring managers, they're thinking of three things. Can I work well with this person? Are they going to work well with the team? And lastly, are they going to, most importantly, do I see our customers working well?
Yeah.
And if you're not meeting those three, they're going to pass. But if you are, they'll overlook some of that lack of experience because I like the way this person interacts.
So you've said that you don't always think that a degree is required for these roles. And I love that
I think it's
comment.
nonsense.
Maybe you can, tell us
I
more
think it's
about your
nonsense.
thought process. Yeah.
My dad, he owned a car dealership, so he's always been on the sales side. So I've seen sales in my lifetime since I'm a little kid. From of course car salesman get that's the car salesman trying to do whatever it takes to make a sale. But really, at the end of the day, I'm drawing a blank. Your original question, I just had a brain freeze.
Do you need a degree?
No, degrees are complete nonsense. And the reason being is because it's true. I personally think that we're heading that way as a society, that in the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to see more and more people that we're seeing it now where they don't have degrees and they're multimillionaires when they're 22 years old because they're taking advantage of whatever it is on social media to sell whatever they want to sell. There's nothing. And I went to Villanova University. It was a very good college in Pennsylvania. I had the bio degree. There's absolutely zero that I got from my education that helped me in sales. Everything that helped me was going out there and selling and having conversations, getting in front of people. So I think it's unfair because there's a lot of great candidates out there that don't have degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That I always push my clients when they can to speak to some of these individuals because there's so many out there that could be great sales reps, but the degree is holding them back. And they've yet to answer my question that I ask all these companies, what in that degree what is the degree that's really going to help me? Prove it to me that degree has helped someone become a better sales rep. And they've yet to do that. They usually do that because the company requires it, HR requires it. But overall, when you see a lot of the smaller companies that aren't handcuffed, they'll hire reps without degrees all the time.
Yeah.
So what should candidates focus on instead?
Selling. Get sales. I still open up a lemonade stand today. And I'm being dead serious. Like, do whatever you can because show me you can sell. Don't tell me. I want to see the results.
Mm-hmm.
So when you send me your resume, a lot of times, in terms of optimizing people's resumes, they talk about daily activities. They talk about how they coordinate it with the marketing team. They've held numerous presentations to key opinion leaders around the country. Like, those are daily activities. No one cares about that. What are you ranked? How much did you grow in 2024? How much did you hit your quota? So if you can get roles, the younger in your life, the better, that show that you drive results and you can make an impact. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. When I was at uni, I think my first job was selling pizzas for Domino's. Right. And don't undervalue that. I mean, when you're behind a counter and people come in, they don't really know what they want. You sell to them, right? What is it you're looking for? You want, what size do you want? Are you looking for a deep pan but then I moved on and I sold clothes for a small retailer in Victoria Station in London. And they really told me how to sell. They're like, we're right opposite the station. The Navy land in Southampton and Portsmouth, they all take the train up to Victoria and they're all going to hit the night. They come straight to us to get changed. And they showed me how to sell to these guys that were coming in. Then, interestingly, ended up working for Harrods the next summer. And that was more like waiting for the customers to come. There wasn't a lot of selling involved. People came to Harrods, they knew what they wanted. There wasn't a hard sell. But I had that hard sell, really nice hard sell experience from the shop before. And
I
those,
sold ice cream, Cash, and they were queuing.
there you go. Yeah.
I
Those
love it.
early experiences you have are fundamental building blocks, right?
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
whether you're selling an ice cream or stereotaxis, there are some key skills that you need to have. So I'm interested in this, in the coaching part of your business. And what are the common interview mistakes that people make? And how much of an interview do you think is it more important on your behavioral aspects or your technical aspects? What kind of advice do you give people?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that reps candidates make, and that's why we're such big advocates of putting the work in before you get the interview. So once you have an interview booked, you have to be working your butt off to reach out and get in conversations with these other reps.
Yes.
Because a lot of times I'll hear, well, Joe, I reached out and I never heard back. Okay, well, how many times did you reach out? Everything during an interview process, they have to understand that it's a sales call. It's the same exact thing of a sales call. So if you're gonna reach out to another rep to get information, they don't get back to you. Why? Is that what you expect the doctor to? You're gonna contact the doctor once? He's not going to get back to you maybe for months, maybe
Yeah.
years. That's
Yeah.
kind of persistent. So sometimes they can be testing you. Sometimes they just could be busy. Who knows?
Yes.
You got to
Yeah.
try multiple times. But that's one of the biggest things. They don't really find out the needs of that hiring manager. They try to do more research on the company, how many employees they have, how many products. Nobody cares about that. They can figure that out in 2 seconds looking it up. I'd rather have you do more research to find out about that hiring manager and what they want, and then you could create a better presentation specific to that person. That's one of the biggest mistakes before the interviews that all candidates make. They
Very.
do the research, they do the chat GPT and Google research, not get on the phone and have those conversations.
Yeah. You got to be persistent, not overly persistent and be nasty about it, but you need to have that determination, and people will get back to you at some point.
Yes. And the other thing it's not the easiest to teach,
Mhm.
but a lot of times individuals don't come in with that energy, with that
Yeah.
excitement.
Yeah.
So one quick tip that I can give to whoever will be listening to this, and no one does this, is everyone always sends a thank you email. Always you're going to send a thank you after the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you send one before you meet them?
Yeah.
Why don't you send a thank you before your meeting with that hiring manager, thanking them ahead of time for the time? And is there anything else you'd like me to prepare before we meet? I
Yeah.
guarantee if reps start doing that, you're automatically going to stand out from jump, because no one does it. They wait till after the interview. And I'm not saying to not send one after, but send one before, because that'll help get on their radar. Because
Yeah.
I could, out of 10 people, maybe one other person's doing it.
Yeah. And even send it as a video message, right? So they get to
Absolutely.
see you, they get to feel your enthusiasm, they get that communication you can't get through text, right? Through somebody reading.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Absolutely.
I'm Cash. I want you to reach out and I want you to thank you for X, Y, and Z. They can get to feel your energy.
And then you think you still get invited, Cash?
Maybe me not, but they're like, who's this old?
Cash brings up a great point, because that's something that everyone
Yeah.
can do today via
Yes.
LinkedIn. Put a
Yeah.
video of yourself,
Yes.
just saying, hey, I'm Joe Licata. Here's my background. Here's what I'm looking for in the next role. If they sometimes when they see a smiley face in a picture, it doesn't translate. But when you get to see, when someone's it's a video, you could see more of their personality, and that can really help you out. And it's so
Yeah.
easy
And
to
when they
do.
say, hey, Joe, I just wanted to reach out to you. I know it's me. It's not a copy, paste, copy, paste, copy,
Yes.
paste, copy, paste, right?
Yes.
I know they've reached out for me. You can mention a couple of things that are personal that you've researched. And then I'm thinking, hey, okay, this candidate is going to stand out from the 500 others that I've had,
Absolutely. It's trying to teach individuals that are used to that mass outreach in this world that
Yes.
we all have gotten used to, we all have gotten spoiled by, but taking a step back and saying, I'm just going to reach out to Dr. Jones today. or I'm
Yeah.
just going to reach out. I'm going to think smaller, think less. Don't think about mass applying. That stuff doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
Focus on a couple of jobs and then really do your research, do your digging with those reps. And you're going to get further along than sending out 100 resumes to all these different companies where there's no connection, there's no networking behind it, no relationship being built. That's what everyone has to change, that mindset, because it's not a numbers game anymore. The numbers are already there. You got to figure out a way to stand out.
So we talked a little bit about LinkedIn messaging now already, but I think this is the point when you look for a job, right? Then you suddenly start using LinkedIn. But how can you, I think it should be a continuous process using LinkedIn.
I
How
agree.
should MedTech reps use LinkedIn strategically? Also, keeping in mind that you might want to change jobs in the future or just have a good reputation.
And that's a great point, because that's what and I was guilty of this years ago. My LinkedIn account, it was like I had to, dust the cobwebs off of it every time, and I would only do it when I was out of a job. And then it's like, okay, LinkedIn time for me to start looking. And it really was a bad approach, because it doesn't take much. And a lot of reps don't do this. They feel like they have to be someone like me that's more of a mentor, a coach, to
Yeah.
post something.
Yeah.
Start posting today. Post something that you find interesting. You could repost a comment, with your comments if you're uncomfortable at first, but be seen as someone that you don't have to be a leader, but you're still a valued voice in this industry. Show people that you get on their radar more. So
Yes.
start posting more. That's something easily they can do. But before you do all that, you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile has a professional headshot, not the funny, one with you drinking with your buddies, doing a half a keg stand, or your shirt off, or even the one that you think you look good at the
Yeah.
wedding, at your friend's wedding. Go get
Yeah.
a headshot done.
Yeah.
Spend a couple of dollars, and then make sure that you're really utilizing that space from your banner to your background, so people really know who you are.
When I've coached people on this, I've always told them, look, throughout the year, stuff is going to happen. You're going to do something that's really good, that your boss is going to say, hey, great job there. Or you get to do things the first time in this region that you sold X, or this event happened, right? Get your CV, if it even is printed out or somewhere, and make a note. In your agenda, find a page where you keep these notes. Make a note. Because when you come to that day when you need to update your CV or update your LinkedIn profile, you're like, what have I done in the last 3 years? Right?
Yeah.
You can never
100%.
remember. You can never
100%
remember.
agree. Yeah.
But if you go to that page, you can say, here are the 5 or 6 or 10 things here that I want to put on my CV, right? Just, it can be little scribbles, one sentences, right? Sales achieved this quarter, 20% above quota. Make a note when it happened. These are going to be the golden nuggets that you're going to need, right? When you do your. And then the other thing I try to tell people who come to me for advice is, look, when I'm interviewing you and you tell me, look, in order to sell, I need to go and do X. I need to go and find all the stakeholders. I need to deal with difficult people. Right, great. You know the theory. Now tell me the times where you actually did it. And I want real examples, right? Because at the end of the day, what you did in those situations is what you're going to do in the future. So have
Absolutely.
those stories ready. Have those, you don't have to reveal every person or something, but you can say, hey, I was in this hospital. I was in this situation. It was very stressful. And here's how I managed it with these individuals, right? And convince me that this is a real story. This actually happened. I'm not going to necessarily check on it, but I want to know what your behaviors are when you're put in under pressure, because that's your default.
I love both of those points, Cash, because it's so true. And for us, especially with a lot of the candidates here over the years, I'm sure you guys remember everyone would have a brag book.
Yes.
We all had brag books years ago. Now
Yes.
they're not as prevalent.
Yes.
Managers don't ask. Let's be real. With technology these days, someone can make up a fake brag book on ChatGPT in 2 seconds. It's not about that. It's about, like you said, putting that together. I would have it both electronically saved, and I would have it printed out, putting it into your brag book, because even though they don't ask for it as much now and they're not expecting it, it's another way to stand out. Because how many reps actually go, oh, by the way, at the end of the video, here's all the proof of all my documentation that I have in here for you to take a look at. That to me, I think just shows more value and helps you stand out because no one's doing it anymore. And it's
Yeah.
so valuable to do.
Yeah. And you can't BS it because an experienced manager will ask 2 or 3 questions and know whether you've made up the story,
100.
right?
Agreed.
You can very quickly trip over. Have these real world examples of what you did. They don't have to be from the Medtech world, right? Oh, when I was in this sales role, when I was in my community, when I was at church, this happened. When I was, with my friends out on the town, this happened. And this is how I reacted to it. These are the key behaviors that I want to know about because that's going to be key to who you are and how successful you're going to be in my business as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of the companies, they still love reps that answer in that star format,
Yes,
situation, task, action, result. So that's a
exactly.
great point too, because when you have those stories written down and saved, you're going to come back to a lot of those in the interviews anyway. So these are great. It would be a great database for you to go back to because let's be real, we have a lot of success stories that we all don't remember every single thing that we've done. So it's
Exactly.
great to put those notes down because they are going to come in handy in the interviews.
It's a mistake that very young people who are in their first interviews make. And somebody very close to me made this error. They spent all their time learning the technical aspect of the job, and then they went in and they didn't get any technical questions. And I said to that person, "You're 100% right." Jurgen Klopp, the former manager of Liverpool Football Club, I saw an interview of him, and the interviewer asked him, when you sit with these football players, what part of the tactics of football do you discuss? And Jurgen, in his enigmatic way, said, "We don't talk football. They wouldn't be in the room if they weren't the best footballer in that position. I talk about their family, their motivation, their history, what they want out of life," right? When those questions come at you, if you studied every screw and bulb in the stereotaxis, you're not going to have that prepared, right? So be a rounded person, be prepared to talk about yourself, your wants, your thoughts, your experiences. You need to have covered that aspect as well.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree.
So, when you are looking ahead at the medtech industry, what trends are you most excited about? Is it AI or robotics or what is it?
Well, it's definitely as the rest of the world is. It is AI, and I
Okay.
think because I have a bunch of companies now that reach out all the time, especially in the past year for consulting because everyone's in a race to create the AI platforms that they can sell to these medtech companies that can help them advance whatever their sales process. And a lot of reps out there I know are afraid. They're scared of AI. AI is going to replace my job. We're not going to be they're not going to need sales reps anymore. And my advice is don't be afraid of AI, embrace it. Use it as another tool in your bag. None of us could sit here and say we see the future and we know what exact impact it's going to have, in terms of replacing sales reps in the future. I personally feel that they're always going to need that personal touch at some point because people are getting more and more sick of an automated message. Sometimes someone calls you and halfway through the call, you're like, oh my God, this is a bot. I'm talking to a robot right now. I'm not even talking to a human. So the more that you can still have that personal touch, I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I'm excited for AI because I see a lot of the products that are being developed now and how they're helping to get more information in the reps' hands so then they can better deliver more specific messaging that's impactful to that customer. That's going to be coming out quick soon, and it's going to be very, very interesting because it's going to help reps out, but it's also the ones that embrace it are going to do the best. The ones that say, I hate all this technology. I'm going to be old school. You're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting for the hiring process because nobody has 5 or 10 years experience. So they are all newbies in AI technology. So how can you stand out when applying for a job in AI for healthcare, no matter what your background is?
Well, again, what I'm seeing, the AI is being developed for the sales reps. So I don't expect anyone that has I guess it's an interesting question because I think you would approach it the same way with any other position that you don't have experience for.
I was more
It's
thinking about all these AI products. I mean, everyone builds AI into a product like wearables and all this stuff. And normally you would see in a job opening requirements 5 years of selling XYZ. But here it's not possible. So what would be the criteria for these people?
I still think companies they're not going to look for someone. If you're looking for a sales role, I haven't met anyone that is saying, Joe, we want someone that's really efficient with AI. You know, for the most part, that is the contradiction to AI. AI is supposed to help the ones that aren't efficient with using a certain platform. The AI is supposed to make things easier and more simple. I don't think companies are saying, I want the person that created the AI to be on my team. They still want that sales rep first. And then, especially if they're looking to get jobs in an AI company, that's more of a tech opening anyway that I wouldn't deal with. But I don't think companies are going to say, we want someone that has at least 3 years of ChatGPT experience to take this sales role. Because to be honest, I just started using ChatGPT a few months ago. I feel like I'm a wizard in it because it doesn't take much intelligence. It does the
Yeah.
work for you. You just got to put
Yeah.
the searches in. So I think they're
Yes.
still going to focus, if it's a sales role, they're going to focus on that sales background, not if someone has AI experience. I don't think that's going to be the driver.
You need to have an understanding of what the AI does and maybe how it works. Beyond that, no. I mean, if you're looking, then go hire IT code
Yeah,
writers,
exactly.
right? But you'll find they can't sell, right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm super
Well,
interested in
perfect.
rep.
Sorry,
Please go ahead.
before you make that point, here's a
Yeah.
perfect example. When it came to stereotaxis, if you saw the internal components of these machines,
Yes.
I mean, the first time I saw that, I said to myself, I'm too stupid for this role. I don't know what's going on inside this machine. And then you realize you don't need to know a fraction of the percent of what's going on. You just have to
No.
know how to sell it.
Yeah.
How does it
Exactly.
work? How does I don't need to know about all the internal components. And I think it's the same thing, like you were saying before, Cash, with
We
AI.
have the
It's
same
just,
with the robot. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Same thing.
Yeah. Or a proton. I mean, you're looking at, you go behind the room. It's like the Starship. You walked inside the Starship Enterprise. You're like,
Yeah.
where do you start? Right.
Where do we
But
start?
what you're selling is this removes cancer.
That's it. Yes.
Now,
Yes.
who are the people in this hospital that I need to talk to ensure you can acquire this system, right?
And honestly, there's of course we have different customers that really, some of those doctors that really want to geek out on the technology. If you can't answer a question that's above your pay grade, you're going to bring someone in from engineering, from tech support that's going to be able to answer those questions. But those are few and far between. But majority of the customers are, okay, what is the value to my patients, my practice, the business? What is it at the end? Where is that value? And if I can relay that value to you, that's the person they want to talk to. Because sometimes the people that are too technical, they go, wait a minute, I don't know what you're saying. You're speaking a different language. And it kind
Yes.
of turns them off.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If somebody wants to know the inner circumference and the outer circumference of a knee replacement and at what angle the posterior cruciate non-sparing angle is then I'll bring you someone to have that.
Tell someone how a television works. Okay. All right. I still am blown away that this day and age, they've been out for 100 years, that I'm seeing an image live and it's transmitted through
Yeah.
this box that I just plug it in. I still don't know how it works. I just know that that's a television.
Yeah.
So
And you can watch it.
I can
Yeah.
watch it. That's it.
So rep path, I'm fascinating that with the three aspects of your company that you described, all highly valuable. You seem like a one-stop shop for someone like myself who will be looking to recruit a team of people. Who should be contacting you, and what kind of who are your general customers for your business?
Yeah. Well, first off, a great question. For the Rep Path Academy, that's individuals that are
Mm-hmm.
looking to break in. So a lot of them, when you see on LinkedIn, if you see yourself as an aspiring medical sales rep, a lot of them put that title. That's a simple title that we are the bread and butter solution for those candidates. So the ones that are frustrated, Joe, I've been applying for months, no one's getting back to me. I'm getting ghosted. Those are bread and butter for the academy. but we also work with individuals that are struggling in where they are in their career, and that's helping them advance. So they've been a sales rep now for 15 years. They want to get into management, or they're just stuck in this certain income bracket where they can't get to that next level, or they're ranked in the middle of the pack. They want to get to be an elite sales rep. But we work with all those individuals to help them advance and get better in their skill set too, not just trying to get the next job, but when you're in that next job, okay, now what? And we're here
Yeah.
to support that too. On the recruiting side, recruiting is typical recruiting. I mean, our benefit is we're gonna minimize the workload that's on the hiring team. We're not going to send you every and any candidate. We're going to make sure that they're strictly vetted out, so you're only getting the best candidates, so we can get you placements quicker, and take a lot off your plate. And in terms of the consulting side, I mean, right now, again, a bulk of my business is coming from a lot of these AI companies, but we work with any medical sales organization that is either looking to build a sales team out, or also we do a lot of consulting with, hey, Joe, I have this product, but I don't know where to go next. What do I do? What market should I look at? What areas should we start to build a team? Or do we even have a valuable product here that is going to make an impact? Because there's sometimes you have to have tough conversations that they think is a good idea. And in my opinion, I don't agree. But it's basically that encapsulates the consulting side. But those are our different types of targeting customers.
To this
Fantastic.
point of having a career in medtech, if you were starting over today in 2026, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 2 to 3 years preparing for your career?
To be honest with you, and this is something that, again, I get a lot of flack for because I am such a big proponent in this industry. I would
Yeah.
pick a career. It doesn't have to be medtech. Any career in sales where you can continue to build your business. So one of the toughest things in our industry is you build a great territory, you build these great relationships, say, like Cash was saying in orthopedics earlier. Now all of a sudden, company dissolves, your territory gets dismantled. Now you're back out there again, and then your next role is in cardiology. Now you're starting from the ground up, trying to build these contacts and build up a bulk of connections. And then that doesn't work out. Now you're going into anesthesia. And now you're
Mm.
building. So my advice is, because I have a bunch of friends that got into the insurance industry after medical sales, and they love
Mhm.
it because they have a bulk of business that's theirs and they can take it anywhere else. I mean,
Mm.
that's my biggest motivation to be an entrepreneur, that whatever I build is mine. Okay. One of the biggest lies told in our industry, and I'm honest, I've said it too when I was a manager, treat your territory like it's your own business. And that's never 100% true. I mean, I
Right.
get it. They want to say own your territory, but you don't cut your business in half. You don't change the bonus structure of your own business. So when you have your own business, it's yours. You could constantly grow that. I think that is any roles where you can continue to grow that business and it's yours are the most valuable.
Yeah. You know what? You said something interesting then. Like people who, you had a stint in maybe orthopedics, then you went into cardiac, maybe you went to anesthesia, maybe you went to radiology. There's 17 different areas of med device, right? That's not such a bad thing because when I'm looking to hire in robotics, for example, there's not a dearth of robotic people out there, right? But if you spent 25 years in cardiac or 25 years in orthopedics or 25 years, how much of your sales technique is still sales technique and how much is just the relationships you have, right? How easy is it going to be for you to transition to what I'm doing if you've just spent the bulk of your entire career in one area, right? So my advice, I would definitely hire someone who's been in 3 different parts of our med device industry because they've shown adaptability, they've shown the ability to learn. They've worked in anesthesia, which the anesthesiologists buy as a group. They've sold to surgeons. The surgeons buy as individuals, right? But they've sold to a hospital where there are multiple stakeholders with multiple different roles to play in the purchasing process. That for me is great, right? I really like those people. Don't wait the 30, 20, 30 years to be made redundant and then say, well, maybe I should look around and see, because maybe you're a little bit, you're not showing that flexibility that other people may be looking for in the role, right? Always be thinking about what's next, what's new, challenge yourself, do something different.
Well, it's a great point you're making, because especially when it comes to resumes, that I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that some candidates, they'll put all their accomplishments in one section, right?
Yeah.
It'll just say accomplishments. And then as someone reading the resume, now I don't have the time to look at your resume and go, 2004 President's Club winner, where was that? Oh, that was when he was at Stryker. 2008 President's Club, but that's when he was at Medtronic. No, I'm not doing that crap, right? And then you're also hurting yourself, because I want you to put it under each role. Put your accomplishments under each role, because if you won 5 President's Clubs at one company, or if you won 5 over 3 different companies, I want the second person. Because I know that you could have taken over a great territory where you have 3 people on the speakers bureau that are your contacts. We know that game. But if you can take that success and show that you've done it at multiple places, now you're a high performer, because you can duplicate it, and you're going to duplicate it and do it at this company too.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Fantastic.
I think, Joe, we come to our final question, because we are already late, but it was so interesting. And it's a little bit similar to my last one, but still we want to have our final question for everyone. So what are the 3 things that you know now that you wish you would have known then, and then could be 10 years ago or 20 or just 1 hour ago?
Yeah.
Before
so
this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like we talked about before, if you want this career, it could be a great career, but I didn't realize how volatile it is. It doesn't matter. Give me the companies that is the most stable, who has the best culture, all that. You can't go by that, guys, because something could change tomorrow and you could be out of a job. So knowing that it's going to be volatile, and you have to have the adaptability, that is very, very crucial in this industry. So just be prepared for that, because I wasn't ready for that. First time I had my first realignment, I thought the world was going to end, and now you're just so used to it. So that is first and foremost. The other thing, again, I know we talked about it, but it's very important to me, and I'm very passionate about. It's access, not thick skin. When you're in your next interview, do not tell someone you have thick skin. Nobody cares, because everyone has that. If you could start talking their language and saying, I know access is one of the biggest challenges, and I faced that in my previous role, no matter what it is, but talk about how you overcame access challenges to get your messaging across. That is going to be huge for any hiring manager to hear that, because reps don't talk about it. And that's a real challenge in our industry. So if you could show solutions in that regard, you're going to stand out much more effectively. And the last thing is, it is that competition factor that you have to really want it. If you go into it half-assed, saying, sounds cool, I have a friend that does it, my aunt does it, my cousin does it, don't say that in interviews. You have to show that passion of why you really want this, and have a story, because it's going to go on deaf ears. And it's also not going to be a career that you want if you're doing it because you heard it's cool. Really do your research, really know what you're getting into, because it is a challenging career, but it could be very, very lucrative and a great career. You got to really realize what you're getting into.
Fantastic. Joe, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation. Time has absolutely flown by. When Silke said we were over time, I didn't believe it. I had to check the clock, and I was like, wow. Thank you so much. Great insights,
pleasure.
Great tips. And I would encourage everyone who's looking for a role or looking to build out a team to get in touch with you. You sound like you've got great experience, great network of people. So we appreciate your time today and all the advice.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you so much. I wish you guys a great new year, and it's been a pleasure being on the show, and I hope we could do this again soon.
Look forward to it.
Okay, guys, you have a great day. You take care.
Thank you for tuning into our Medtech Lives. You have been listening to Zilka Riemer and Cash Ikran. We're committed to bringing you insights and stories that inspire and inform the medical community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network.